Last spring, my girlfriend's father stood up at a family dinner, raised a glass of $90 wine in my direction, and said, "Sophie, you can't build a life on a man who rents his shoes." Quick thing before we go on. I made a free money starter kit. No cost, no catch. The playbook I wish I had when I was broke. The link's in the description. Grab it. 12 people laughed at me. I smiled and kept quiet. Because that night, sitting in an account nobody knew about was $3,260,000. And in 2 years, not one person at that table ever asked what was in my account. Let me back up. I fix elevators. Been doing it 25 years. Most mornings by 9 I smell like machine grease and thermos coffee, and I like it that way. My car is 14 years old with 200,000 miles on it, and it starts every single time. My good suit cost $200 off the rack. I own exactly one nice pair of shoes, and Marco on 5th Street has resoled them twice. They fit better than anything new ever could. And I love Sophie. She's in her last year of nursing school, pulls weekend shifts at St. Luke's, and laughs with her whole face. We met when I was fixing the staff elevator on her floor. She held my flashlight and asked better questions than the building inspector. She never once looked at my old car like it was a problem. She just got in. Her parents' driveway has heated bricks. That should have told me everything. The dinner was in March at the big house. White tablecloth, catering staff, and Gerald announcing the wine by its price. $90 a bottle. You won't taste better. Sophie's mother, Marlene, looked at my jacket and asked if I'd come straight from work. I had. She knew. Her brother Trent asked if my suit came with a second pair of pants. Gerald got to the point before the salad plates were cleared. "So what does an elevator man pull down these days, Eric?" I told him I did fine. He laughed like I'd told a joke at my own funeral. "Fine," he repeated for the whole table. "This family is worth 8 figures, son. Fine doesn't get you a seat at it." Then he stood, raised the $90 wine, and said the sentence I'll never forget. "Sophie, you can't build a life on a man who rents his shoes." Trent laughed so hard he choked. Marlene smiled into her napkin. And Sophie stood up next to me, took my hand on top of the table, and said, "Then I'll rent mine too." We walked out before the lamb. At the door, Marlene handed me my coat and said, "We'll see you at Christmas. Or we won't. Here's what nobody at that table knew, and it starts with my dad." My dad was a show. Gold watch, leased Cadillac, picked up every bar tab in the county. The watch was hollow. I learned that at 15, the same week 2 men from the bank took the Cadillac out of our driveway while the neighbors watched from their porches. He still wore the watch to the food court after that. That's the day the lesson went in deep. Loud money is rented. Quiet money is owned, so I built mine quiet. Warehouse job at 18. Elevator apprenticeship at 20. $80 a week into a boring index fund. Automatic, moved before I ever saw it. No hot tips. No lottery tickets. At 25, I hit my first $10,000. At 33, $100,000. Every raise went in. Every overtime check went in. I kept the car. I kept the suit. And compound interest just did what it does when nobody touches the pile. The year I turned 40, the account crossed $1 million. I sat alone in my kitchen that night and had 1 beer to celebrate. I didn't tell my mother. I didn't tell my best friend. And I didn't tell Sophie, not because I didn't trust her. Because she'd already chosen a man with grease under his nails and a 14-year-old car, which meant the number would never be the reason she stayed. My rule was simple. The number stays private. Nobody gets to love it, hate it, or borrow against it. Gerald never asked anyway. He'd priced me the moment he saw my shoes. 2 weeks after that dinner, he called me to his office downtown. Glass desk, skyline behind him, a framed photo of the mansion like it was one of his kids. He slid a fat envelope across the glass. $20,000, he said. "Walk away from my daughter and stay gone. Every man has a number, Eric, and yours can't be big." I slid it back untouched. I told him Sophie wasn't for sale, and neither was I. Then I thanked him for the coffee because my mother raised me right. That was me trying to do the decent thing. Here's what it bought me. By Sunday, Gerald had told the entire family that I came to him begging for $20,000 and that he threw me out. Marlene sent Sophie a long text about gold diggers. Trent started calling me the loan application. Sophie asked me for the truth. I gave it to her, and she believed me before I even finished. She always did. But now her family had a story about me, and it was doing laps. Setback 2 came on the 4th of July at their lake house. Trent rolled up in a brand new sports car, $140,000 of machine. Leased, though he skipped that detail. He cornered me on the deck with a plastic cup and an opportunity. A waterfront development his buddies were raising money for. Guaranteed to double. Minimum buy-in is $50,000, he said, loud enough for everyone. Which is probably the problem, huh? I asked him one question. What's the debt on the deal? He blinked like I'd switched languages, so I passed politely. And I told him something true. Before his name went on anything, he should find out who owed what. That was me trying to do right by him. He turned the whole deck and announced, he doesn't have 50 grand. Look what he drove here. The laughter rolled down to the water. Gerald raised his beer and added, leave money to the men who have some. I bit my tongue so hard I tasted copper. For Sophie, I smiled and ate my burger. Setback 3 came in October, and it wasn't even aimed at me. Marlene called Sophie with an ultimatum. End it by Thanksgiving, or the family stops paying for her last year of nursing school. $30,000 yanked, just to punish her for loving me. Sophie didn't take a breath before choosing me. And they actually did it. They pulled the money. She sat at my kitchen table holding the tuition letter and cried, and I held her with the number sitting right behind my teeth. Run the math on her family so far. $20,000 to erase me. $50,000 to sit at Trent's table. $30,000 ripped away from their own daughter out of spite. I bit my tongue one last time and said, you won't miss a single class. I promise. She thought I meant student loans. Then November came, and the tide went out on all of them at once. The waterfront deal collapsed. Turns out Trent had gone in after all on borrowed money, and the margin calls found him first. The beautiful car went back in a single weekend. Then the trouble climbed the family tree. Gerald had personally guaranteed $800,000 of the development loan, and the bank called it. And the mansion with the heated driveway was carrying $1.9 million of debt against a $2.4 million price tag. The bank gave Gerald 9 days to find $600,000. You know how I found out? They called Sophie. The daughter they cut off over $30,000 in tuition. Marlene, sugar sweet on the phone, asking whether a nursing student had savings. $600,000. From the girl they wouldn't give $30,000. That night I sat in my dark kitchen with the phone glowing and opened the account I never open in front of anyone. My boring funds had wobbled that fall and settled, the way they always settle. Leverage doesn't settle. Leverage snaps. I counted my digits with my thumb against the glass, one at a time. 3, 2, 6, 0, 0, 0, 0. $3,260,000. Built $80 at a time by the man who rents his shoes. And the family worth 8 figures. Add up the cars, the marble, the $90 bottles. Then subtract what the banks actually owned. Their whole glittering life came out to less than zero. Mine was quiet. Mine was real. Now here's the part I'm proudest of. The first dollar I moved went nowhere near revenge. Monday morning I drove to the bursar's office at Sophie's school and paid her final year in full. $30,000. One receipt. Done before lunch. No loans, no strings, no speech. Then I called my landlord of 11 years and bought the duplex I'd been renting. $290,000 cash. A month later I was holding the deed to the first roof I ever owned. I framed it and hung it by the door. Marco resoled my shoes that same week. I tipped him so big he tried to hand it back. Then I sat Sophie down at my kitchen table and slid my phone across, account open. She stared at the screen for a long, quiet stretch. 7 digits staring back. Then she looked up and said, this changes nothing. And I said, I know. That's exactly why you get to see it. She cried again at that table. A very different kind of crying. The tuition portal is what gave me away. Marlene saw the balance marked paid in full and called Sophie, demanding the name of the loan company. Sophie said, Eric paid it. I'm told the silence lasted 10 full seconds. 2 days later, Gerald's car pulled up outside my duplex. He came to talk Sophie into coming home. Instead, he stood in my kitchen, staring at the framed deed on the wall. Whose building is this? Mine, I told him. Bought it last month. You! With what money? And Sophie answered from the doorway, calm as morning. You never asked what was in his account. I watched him try to rebuild me in his head, right there by my stove. The car. The suit. The shoes. The math wouldn't work. He left without finishing his coffee. That Sunday he came back alone, and a different man sat down at my secondhand table. No wine to announce. He put his hands flat on the wood and told me everything I already knew. The guarantee. The bank. 9 days. $600,000. Then came the flattery, thick as syrup. I always told Marlene you had substance, Eric. I see men clearly. It's my gift. I let that one hang in the air. Then his voice cracked, and the begging started. I could lose the house, Eric. Marlene can't sleep. Trent won't answer his phone. Please, you're family, son. Family helps family, son. 8 months earlier, Fine couldn't get me a seat at his table. Now I was family. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't need to. That was the entire point. I said, Gerald, you stood up in front of 12 people, raised a glass of $90 wine, and told your daughter she can't build a life on a man who rents his shoes. He stared at the table. I kept it slow. I own my shoes. I own this building. I own every dollar in that account, and not one of them has a bank's name on it. Can you say that about your driveway? Then I told him exactly what I would do and what I never would. I would not hand $600,000 to the man who priced me at 20. No check. Not now, not ever. But my attorney, the best restructuring man in the state, and a fee-only advisor would sit with him that same week, hired by me. Billed to me. They would sell the mansion before the bank could grab it, settle the guarantee, and land Gerald and Marlene in a paid-off condo with their dignity still attached. Structure, not cash. The kind of help nobody can flash, waste, or gamble away. And one condition, and it wasn't for me. Thanksgiving dinner, same table, same 12 people. He stands up and he apologizes to his daughter. He studied his hands for a long time. Then he took the deal, and he kept it. Thanksgiving night he stood at the head of that white tablecloth with no glass in his hand and a shake in his voice, and said he'd been wrong about his daughter and wrong about me. Said he judged a man by his shoes and missed every single thing that mattered. Trent studied his plate. Marlene reached for Sophie's hand. Sophie was already holding mine. On top of the table. And this spring, I sat front and center at Sophie's pinning ceremony in my $200 suit and my twice-resoled shoes. When they called her name, the quietest man in the room made the most noise of his life. Some things deserve an audience. Money just isn't one of them. So here's the lesson, as plain as I can make it. Gerald had the mansion, the marble, the $90 wine, and an 8-figure story. Underneath it all, less than zero. I had an old car, one good suit, and a quiet number nobody ever thought to ask about. Real wealth is the quiet number that never needs an audience, not the loud lifestyle that can't exist without one. Now I want to hear from you. Would you ever show the people around you your real net worth? Or does your number stay private like mine did? Where's your line? Tell me in the comments because I go through every single one. And if you like stories where quiet money wins in the end, stick around. I'm Eric. I'll see you in the next one.